Hello and thank you for joining me. This is Cooking with Cod3Theory episode 16. Got another Sunday brunch edition. Today I'm going to be making blueberry scones. What you'll need for that is an oven pan, some Pam spray. I have the bottom coated, which helps the baking sheet stay stuck to the pan, and as well as I have the top coated. And you're going to need to preheat the oven to 400 degrees. And then you'll need some muffin mix. Just generic muffin mix. You can make it yourself. This is gluten-free muffin mix, so it's basically a mixture of rice flour and sugar, and a little bit of tapioca and some other things. You'll need 2 eggs and 1/3 cup of milk. You'll also need 1 stick or 8 tablespoons of chopped butter. If you watched my coffee cake video, then I just did the same thing, basically chopped butter. These are about about teaspoon serving sizes of butter, some sugar, and so a choice of fruit. I'm going to be using blueberries, so you could use different variety, cranberries, craisins, all sorts of things. So you don't actually have to use blueberries. You can use whatever you want basically. So you start off with your dry ingredients in a mixing bowl, and you're going to add the wet ingredients next. I'm going to add this butter, and I'm going to mix this first. So the kind of butter, the reason we use like this finely chopped butter instead of just melted butter like you would with pancake mix is because it adds a certain consistency that you need for scones, much like the coffee cake. We have these. Let me turn this down a touch. And I'm just going to mix this. You could use a blender if you wanted. So again, when I did the coffee cake, I kind of mixed this all together before I added the eggs and milk. You want to do that same thing here. So mix the dry ingredients with the butter really well. You want to look for a really fine consistency. Okay. So now I'm gonna beat the eggs and add the milk in a separate bowl. So milk, 1/3 cup milk. And for this I'm using oat milk. It's still not dairy free because I also have the butter in there. I'm going to mix this together really well. Okay, I'll add it. And then mix this up really well. Okay, so as you get closer to this, you'll get to a point where you're no longer able to mix it with a whisk. So you'll either have to use a blender or your hands, kind of like pizza dough. So, and if it gets a little, you'll see sometimes it'll be a little dry in spots. If you're mixing this by hand, you will find times where there'll be too much excess on your hands to continue properly. So what you'll do is you'll rinse your hand off and use the moisture from your hands and continue mixing until you get a better consistency. So the next thing we're going to do is add a little bit of sugar. This is just my preference. You don't have to add additional sugar. From my experience, scones, the authentic way to make scones, they can come out a little dry and a little lacking in flavor, so that's why I add a little bit of extra sugar. So I'm just going to add like a tablespoon of sugar. And then what I have here, I have maybe about a cup of blueberries. I'm going to add that to the mixture as well. Okay. And then I'm going to just kind of carefully remix this back up. Make sure to get a nice consistency with the blueberries to the batter. Okay, now here's probably what we're gonna do is probably one of the harder parts. We're gonna make these into like kind of like triangles, which is unconventional as far as baking. And they are gonna grow and expand, and they don't have to be perfect either. So something like that will be acceptable. That might even be a little too big, honestly. They are going to increase about twice the size, I believe. And you're just trying to make kind of like a triangle style rectangle. Like I said, they don't have to be perfect. Just do the best you can. You definitely don't want to make sure they're not too thick, because that's going to affect like if they're going to be dry in the center. I'm just going to see, I'm kind of rolling it out somewhat like a rectangle-ish shape. Because you're not, depending on your batter, you're not going to be able to get them perfect anyway. And that's fine. That's why we don't make scones professionally. You know, even though I'm not really a baker, I like baking. There's a certain calmness that comes with baking something. I never feel rushed when I'm baking something. You'll notice they'll start, this batter, it's going to stick to everything. So again, take your time doing this. The form doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to do like one more. Make sure they're spaced out about 2 inches apart from each other. So if you want to make more than 4 or 6 of these, then you're going to need an additional pan. Or a bigger pan, depending on the size of your oven. You want to get close up on that one. Rinse my hands. And if you want to come over to the batter, I still have enough to probably make 3 or 4 more if I wanted to, which is great. You can save that for another time if you want, or use it. Oh. I'm going to put these in. These are going to bake for about 12 to 15 minutes on, again, 400 degrees. If you want, you can also do a nice little trick is sprinkle sugar on top, just light sugar. So just some sugar on top. And then I'm going to put these in about 7 to 8 minutes. I'm going to rotate this pan to ensure an even more consistent cook. And I have them on the top rack to ensure that they won't burn if I happen to cook them for a minute or two too long. Alright, so we're done here. You see, these actually turned out looking really good. So, not the ideal shape, but you can see it's still definitely presentable in the sense if you were doing this for the first time. So you definitely want these cool for about 5 to 10 minutes. And that's all there is to it. So thank you for watching. Check me out on Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Mixcloud. That's Cod3Theory, Cod3Theory.